Francesca wants to find the distance between her house on one side of a lake and the beach on the other side. She marks off a third point, forming a right triangle as shown. The distances in the diagram are measured in meters. It's helpful that the problem tells us that it forms a right triangle, so we can go ahead and mark that. If it didn't, we would still be able to tell that it's a right triangle by looking at the coordinates that are listed. If we look at the coordinates of the house and the third point she marked, we can see that they have the same y coordinate, which means that those two are straight across from each other. And if we looked at the beach and the third coordinate, we can see that they have the same x coordinate, which means it's one right above the other. And that means that these two lines are perpendicular, forming a 90-degree angle. The side that she wants to know, the distance between her house and the beach, this line right here, is therefore going to be the hypotenuse because it is opposite the 90-degree angle that we have right here. So this is going to be a Pythagorean theorem problem, and in order to do the Pythagorean theorem, to find that hypotenuse, we need to know how long the two legs are. So figuring out how long the two legs are just requires us to do a tiny little bit of subtraction. So this leg right here at the bottom just means if we start at 10 and we end at 280 on the x-axis, how much is that? How far did we go? And that's a simple subtraction problem. 280 minus 10 gives us 270. So the distance here is 270. Let's call that our A, just because. We could call it our B if we wanted to, but I did that one first, so I'm calling that one A. So now we're going to do the same thing going in the Y direction. Let's look at our y's, which were 164 and 20. So 164 and 20 were our y coordinates. To figure out how far that is, we're going to go ahead and subtract those. So let's do 164 minus 20, and that gives us 144. And so 144 is going to be, that's an ugly 4, 144 is going to be our B coordinate, or not B coordinate, our B value. Okay, we've got our A, we've got our B. Now we're ready to plug it into the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem, we should all have etched into our brains by now, is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And we now know our A and our B, and we need to solve for C. So let's go ahead and plug them in. So A was 270. So 270 squared plus our B is 144, so 144 squared equals C, the thing we don't know, C squared. So I have no idea what 270 squared is. I'm sure that somebody could probably figure that out without using a calculator, but I cannot. My calculator says 72,900. Just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? And my calculator says that 144 squared is 20,736. Sheesh. Big numbers. That equals C squared. Okay, so next step is to add these two values together. And according to my calculator, that is going to be 36639. Did I add that right? 93. Yeah, that seems right. 93,636. You should use a calculator for that one too. You should definitely check me on that. I didn't, full disclosure, didn't actually use a calculator for that one, but I feel reasonably confident about that. We'll go with that. If it's wrong, whatever you do, do not tell me if I got that wrong. Just keep it to yourself. The teacher is always right. Okay, so now I need to square root both sides of this. So I need to take the square root of 93,636, which, child's play. The square root of 96,330. Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and I'll do the hard part. The square root of C squared is C. And then I'll use my calculator for the simple part, which is 93,636 square rooted, which is 306, obviously. So 306 is what the calculator tells me the value of C is. I mean, clearly, everybody's memorized their squares up to 306 squared, right? So the answer is 306, but we don't want to just leave it at that. We want to write our answer in context. We will say the distance from, okay,
Do you want to come?
Francesca's house. My son is making another appearance to her, well, I guess it's not her beach. Francesca's house to the beach is 306, and we were measuring this in, it says meters, 306 meters. Okay, so to solve this problem, we had to use the coordinates to figure out how far apart each one of these distances were. That gave us the sides of the right triangle. Then we used those sides to use the Pythagorean theorem with some really huge numbers, so we had to use the calculator for most of this. But miraculously, our answer turned out to be a whole number, and then we wanted to not just leave it as 306, but write that whole number in the context so that we answered the problem, the distance from her house to the beach, 306 meters.